Chapter 37. The dead do not speak, but the earth tells tales. Now let me spin you this yarn about a place down yonder in Mexico way. Back in them wild times, round about the days when folks was still scratching out a living on the edge of nothing. 'Twas the town of Galeana, all gussied up in reds and oranges and grays, like a sunset gone sour. Them church bells was tollin' slow and heavy, thumpin' like an old man's heart 'bout ready to give out. In them cobblestone squares, 'twixt them mud brick houses, the women folk was bundled up in black shawls, lightin' candles afore altars piled high with sugar skulls and offerings, dried peppers, that fiery mescal liquor, them bright marigold flowers, oranges, and sweet loaves of bread. On the walls they had painted up gay faces of the departed, kinfolk long gone, young'uns, husbands, wives, brothers and sisters, but a mighty gloomy cloud hung over the whole shebang, thick as the smoke from that copal incense rising up in the chill morning air. "It's been a month since we heard tell from Rancho El Cuervo," mutters the gal serving at the Estrellas Brillantes, staring off toward them mountains. "Not even a crow's come back," chimes in old Monico the shepherd, with eyes empty as a dry well. Even with all the celebrating for the Day of the Dead, a shadow was creeping over the folks like a buzzard circling. Whispers in the church reckoned the Apaches had swooped down from the hills. The young'uns took to drawing feathers on scraps of paper, and the old grannies was slicing candles in twain, saying, "We might need extry light afore long." Governor Arminjo, he warn't smiling none. He up and sends a posse of 10 men, headed by Sergeant Pena, to scout out what befell Rancho El Cuervo. They rode hard for 2 days on dusty trails, the air stinking of dried blood and scorched palo verde trees. Nary a wagon train nor a soldier's boot print did they spy. Come dawn of the 3rd day, the bunch pulls up at the rancho. Everything was quiet as the grave. Not the hush o' morning, but the kind of silence that chokes you like a mouthful of dust. Gates busted wide, buildings burnt plumb to the ground. White skulls, jaws hanging loose, poking out from heaps of ash and embers. On one wall, somebody'd scrawled in blood, "La tierra no olvida," the earth don't forget. Right in the middle, a sight to turn your stomach. Officer Ramos, lashed to a cactus, his ears sliced clean off and set in his own hands, like a warning for them what don't heed the spirits. His eyes was shut, body left whole out of some queer respect for his rank. A neat bullet hole in his chest done him in. Off at the edge of the place, Joaquin was buried up to his neck in sand, skin baked crisp by the sun. A silver coin shining twixt his cracked lips. Over him, 2 vultures was picking at what was left, though there warn't no life in him no more. One bird slow-like plucks at an eye, t'other tears a chunk from his cheek, all quiet, like they was performing some heathen rite. Sergeant Pena drops to his knees afore it. "St. Jerome, this ain't war. This here's the reckoning of folks what's lost too much." One trooper pukes his guts out. Another crosses himself. Pena fishes that coin from Joaquin's mouth and wraps it in his kerchief. "We'll tote it back to Galeana. Let the governor eyeball the last payoff." Them Apaches had left the rancho standing empty when they lit out. But what really come to pass? Every warrior in that scrap had a tale to tote back to his people, so the bands split up, each big brave heading his own trail. Riled up something fierce by the sorry state of their kin Barranquito, Cadete and Santana slips away from the camp where their folks was resting that night. Their ponies tear through the dark, fast as a twister, back to Rancho El Cuervo, mad as hornets at the notion somebody might dig out Joaquin from that sandy grave. Blood hollered for blood, and tracks had to be wiped clean. If that varmint got loose alive, he'd spin yarns about their names and twist the truth to suit hisself. like he'd done a heap of times afore. When they gets there, the two warriors sees Joaquin sufferin' bad. Parched and hurtin', he cries and hollers and begs for mercy. Cadete and Santana helps him breathe his last, gathers up the arrows and bullets strewn round the fightin' ground, and scrubs away every sign they'd been there. Don Laureano's old hacienda goes up in flames, et clean away. Ramos's carcass tied to that cactus was a stark howdy-do to any fool daring to trespass on their dirt. The word was plain. Whoever steps foot here pays with his hide. When them Mexican soldiers moseyed back to Galeana, it was Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. It weren't a day for hushin' up, but a day for comin' back. Not for mopin' round sorrowful, but for gatherin' together again. On this here day, the departed folks traipse homeward on unseen paths lit by light, smells, and recollectance. It was a time when livin' and dyin' set down at the same table, tippin' back mezcal, nibblin' on pan de muerto, that sweet bread of the dead, and callin' to mind one another. In every Mexican dwellin', even them humblest mud shacks, they'd raised up an altar called an ofrenda. This contraption had levels to it. 3 levels standing for the heavens, the earth, and the underworld. Other times, 7 levels, like the stairs a soul clambers up to find rest. Set upon that altar was photographs of them that's gone on, their eyes boring right through the room. Them cempasúchil flowers, marigolds, orange as blazing fire, leadin' the spirits along. Their powerful smells reckoned to swing wide the doors twixt worlds. Candles all aglow, one for each soul, markin' the trail home. Pan de muerto, a sugary loaf dusted with sweetenin' and shaped with bone-like crosses. Sugar skulls, calaveras, with the names of the dead scrawled on their brows, as a sign of greetin' death with a grin. The favorites of the departed, tamales, mole sauce, atole drink, even tequila or smokes, if them was their pet sins. Personal truck, a scarf, a bullet, a comb, a scrap of writin', a glass of water for the soul to slake its thirst after the long haul. Come evening, families troop out to the Pantheon, the burying ground. They spruce up the graves, lay down flowers, and kindle hundreds of candles. Young'uns scamper 'mongst the crosses, and the old-timers spin yarns about the dead like they was just off visitin' kin. Some folks fancy sleepin' by the graves on thick blankets, claimin' that-a-way they can dream alongside the gone ones and catch whispers from the other side. In schools and market stalls, they recite calaveras literarias, them mockin' poems where death's the star. A fancy lady, sassy as all get out, sometimes tipsy, other times sparkin' with crooked politicians. The grandest sign of the day is La Catrina, a lady skeleton decked out in old-timey dresses and big hats. Dreamed up by José Guadalupe Posada and made famous by Diego Rivera, Katrina's pure sass. Death don't pick and choose. Rich or poor, we all wind up bones. In hamlets and towns, parades kick up where crowds paint their faces like the dead, white as chalk, black eyes, flowers tangled in hair, bright garb. Brass bands blow sones and rancheras, and the dancin' harks back to Aztec and Spanish days. Young'uns holler, "La muerte no duele!" Death don't hurt, and thump them drums steady. For Mexicans, death ain't the finish line, but a fresh start. The customs got roots deep in old times. The Aztecs figured souls headed to spots depending on how they cashed in, not how they lived. In Galeana, midst the weepin' for Joaquin and Ramos, candles still flicker. Young'uns peer at pictures of the dead. Women folks set flowers on the altar. And death, fancy, sparklin', soft-like, saunters through town with a marigold fan, whisperin', "Don't dread me. I don't snatch away. I fetch back." The folks was riled up fierce, and the warnin' was plain as day. Don't send no more men onto Apache ground, 'cause they won't come traipsin' home.